My wife, beautiful, brilliant, and a total liar, cheated on me with a smug project director from our job. I caught her red-handed, but she just brushed it off like it never happened. And when she said those words to my face, I promised myself I'd punish her, whatever it cost me. 3 years later, I did. The look on her face was unforgettable. I sat there, looked at her, and knew I was in control. And in one move, I burned her career to the ground. That's the price of betrayal. She deserved it. But let's start at the beginning. My name's Michael. I'm 32 now, but this whole thing began back when I was 30. I've been a cameraman for the better part of a decade. One of those guys behind the scenes, adjusting lighting, framing shots, making sure everyone looks their best on screen while staying completely invisible myself. It's not flashy, but it's honest work. I've always liked that. I met Chris on a Tuesday morning in late April. She walked into the newsroom like she owned the place, 28 years old, bold red lipstick, heels that clicked across the tile, and a presence that made everyone stop talking mid-sentence. She was the new hire, a journalist straight out of some fancy internship program. We started working together a lot. She was sharp, quick with words, had that instinct for what stories would grab an audience. I liked watching her work. She had this fire to her, like every day was a challenge she had to win. We clicked almost instantly. I'd help her set up her shots, adjust the lighting for her interviews, throw out suggestions for angles. She listened. Actually listened. A lot of reporters just bark orders and ignore us tech guys, but not Chris. At first, it was just coffee breaks and shared jokes during long editing nights. Then it turned into pizza at my place after a late shift. One night, she fell asleep with her head on my shoulder while we were watching an old news special. I didn't move for an hour. A few weeks later, she moved in. We got a little one-bedroom apartment not far from the studio. Nothing fancy, just a creaky old place with stained carpet and a busted heater. But it was ours. We'd come home after work, order Chinese, and fall into this rhythm that felt easy, comfortable. A year after we started dating, we got married. Just like that. We didn't do a big wedding. Her in a blue dress, me in a wrinkled gray suit that didn't quite fit anymore. We grabbed burgers and milkshakes after. She said it was low-key romantic, and I believed her. I was proud to be her husband. Chris wasn't just beautiful, though she was, painfully so, with those piercing eyes and a voice that could make anything sound like breaking news. She was talented. Smart. She had guts. And I wanted nothing more than to see her succeed. I pulled every string I had to help her. Got her better slots on the weekend broadcasts, talked to producers about giving her meteor stories. We didn't have much money, but we made it work. Shared bills, cut coupons, skipped going out most nights. I picked up side gigs filming weddings or doing freelance edits for small businesses. She worked extra hours chasing leads, pitching wild stories to get noticed. We hustled. We believed in each other. We'd lie in bed at night, her on her phone scrolling headlines, me staring at the ceiling, and talk about the future. Where we'd be in 5 years. What kind of house we'd buy. If we'd ever leave the city and go somewhere quiet. I didn't see it then, but looking back, I was giving everything I had to hold her up. And she let me. For a while, we were good. Really good. And then, well, things started to shift. But I'll get to that later. For now, just know, that first year, I was the happiest I'd ever been. I thought I was building something solid. Turns out, I was building a house on sand. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just little things. She'd be distracted during dinner. I'd be talking about a tough day, and Chris would just kind of nod without really listening. Sometimes she wouldn't even look up from her phone. She getting snappy. If I left a dish in the sink, it was suddenly a personal attack. She used to laugh at my corny jokes. Now, she acted like I was just embarrassing her. It wasn't like that before. We used to joke, tease each other. Now, every conversation felt like I was stepping into a minefield. Even the way she looked at me changed. Less warm, more cold. Like she was tolerating me. I chalked it up to stress. We weren't exactly rolling in cash. I was still doing contract work, some nights editing commercials, some mornings shooting weddings, and whenever the studio called, I'd be there like clockwork. Chris was putting in extra hours too. She wanted more airtime, better stories, more exposure. And I got it. She was ambitious. Always had been. Maybe she was just burnt out. One Friday night, she said she was headed to her friend Angela's place for girl time. Nothing new. She and Angela had been close since college. I figured it was just a wine and Netflix kind of night. But when I texted her around 9 to ask if she wanted me to pick her up, she said, "No, I'm staying with her. Too much wine." She didn't come home until almost noon the next day. When she walked in, her hair was still damp like she'd just showered, and she gave me this tight, forced smile. "Morning," she said, like everything was fine. She kissed my cheek like it was a routine, not something she meant. I noticed she smelled different. Not her usual perfume. More like one of those fancy hotel body washes, too strong, too sterile. The kind they give out in little plastic bottles. It happened again the next weekend. And the next. Always Angela's. Always staying over. Always the same rehearsed tone when she came back. That's when I started really noticing the patterns. She stopped leaving notes. No more texts saying love you or heading out. Just gone. Sometimes she'd leave after I was already asleep, and I'd wake up to an empty apartment and a cold pillow beside me. She stopped asking about my day altogether. Barely ate meals with me anymore. The weirdest thing? She kept getting dressed up for these girl nights. Not casual like before. I mean full makeup, curled hair, dresses I hadn't seen in months. Chris used to keep her keys on the counter, toss her phone on the couch. But lately, everything stayed glued to her. She'd carry her phone into the bathroom, hold it in her lap while we watched TV. If it buzzed, she'd tilt the screen away from me and say, "Just work stuff." She changed her lock screen from a picture of us in the mountains to some vague skyline photo. One night, she came home later than usual, past midnight. I was pretending to doze on the couch, but I was wide awake. I heard the keys jingle, the door creak open, and her soft footsteps trying not to wake me. She tiptoed to the bathroom first, not even checking if I was still up. The door shut, and I heard the water running for a long time. When she finally came into the living room, I sat up and asked, "Long night?" She jumped, startled, then forced a chuckle. "You scared me," she said. "Didn't know you were still awake." I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. I just nodded and said, "Glad you're home." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. In my gut, I knew something was off. Something had shifted between us. It wasn't just stress. It wasn't just long hours. I could feel her pulling away 1 inch at a time, day by day, until the woman sitting next to me on the couch felt like a stranger. Still, I told myself it was just a rough patch. After all, I loved her. I still believed we could fix it. That maybe if I worked harder, proved myself more, things would turn around. But I was wrong. So damn wrong. It was a Saturday afternoon in early May when I finally decided I couldn't just sit and wonder anymore. Chris had packed her usual overnight bag, tossed on one of her nicer jackets, the beige one with the gold buttons, and a pair of heels she normally reserved for interviews or dinner events. Her makeup was perfect, subtle but polished, like she'd stepped out of a magazine. I asked where she was headed, though I already knew the answer she'd give. "Angela's. We're doing a girls' wine night and maybe watching a movie." She didn't look me in the eyes when she said it. Just grabbed her phone, said she'd be back tomorrow, and was out the door before I could even think of what to say next. I waited 5 minutes, maybe 6. My heart was pounding the whole time. I felt sick, not just nervous, but something deeper. Like I already knew what I was going to find and didn't want to face it. But I had to. I couldn't keep sitting in that apartment while the truth dangled in front of me, just out of reach. I got in my car and followed her. I stayed a few car lengths back, trying to keep my distance. I turned the music off, rolled the windows halfway down to stay alert. Every red light felt like a test. I didn't want her to spot me, but I also didn't want to lose her. The further we got from Angela's neighborhood, the tighter my hands gripped the steering wheel. She didn't head toward the suburbs where Angela lived. She drove downtown, toward the Arts District, the part of the city lined with trendy cafes, bookstores that served wine, and boutique hotels with names like the Willow or the Velvet. Chris parked on a side street and walked the rest of the way. I found a spot across the road and watched from behind the tinted glass. She stopped in front of a small cafe. And then he showed up. John, HT, director of one successful projects. One of the senior guys at our media outlet. He'd worked with her on a documentary a few months back. I remembered him, mid-40s, silver hair, tailored suits that probably cost more than my rent. He had that smooth, confident way of talking. The kind of guy who never rushed, always seemed a step ahead. I'd seen them interact at work, but nothing ever set off alarms before. They hugged. Not the quick, friendly kind. It lingered. Then she took his hand. I watched them walk into the cafe, fingers laced together. I sat there, stunned, not really processing anything. The world felt quiet, even with the traffic humming by. They were in there for maybe 30 minutes. I kept my distance, watched from across the street like a ghost. The entire time, they were touching in some small way. his hand on her knee, her fingers brushing his wrist. I knew that kind of body language. It wasn't just friendly. It wasn't even subtle. Then they left the cafe and started walking. I followed on foot this time, staying back far enough not to get spotted. 2 blocks later, they stopped in front of a boutique hotel. White brick, black awnings. One of those places where the front desk clerk knows the guests by name. They went inside. I stayed across the street, behind a newspaper box, just staring at that doorway like it might spit them back out any second. But they didn't come right back. Minutes dragged into hours. I didn't move, didn't check my phone, didn't even sit down. I just stood there, leaning against a lamppost, trying to steady my breathing. Part of me hoped they were just meeting someone else, that maybe this was some weird work thing, that I was wrong. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. After a little over 2 hours, they finally came out. She was laughing. Her jacket was draped over her arm. Jonah had that same smug grin he always wore, like he'd just closed some high-stakes deal. As they stepped off the curb, he leaned in and kissed her neck. She tilted her head like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like they did this all the time. She didn't even look around. Didn't check to see if anyone from the studio might be nearby. Didn't seem to care if anyone saw. That hurt more than I expected. I didn't follow them after that. I couldn't. I turned around, walked the opposite direction, got in my car, and sat behind the wheel for a long time without starting the engine. My chest felt like it had caved in. It was like something inside me had cracked and all the air was leaking out. I wasn't even angry yet, just hollow, numb. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember walking into the apartment. I just remember the quiet. The kind that hums in your ears when your world changes and you can't do a damn thing to stop it. Chris didn't come home that night. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't wonder where she was. I already knew. When she got home, I was sitting at the kitchen table, all the lights off except for the overhead above me. She walked in, humming some pop tune under her breath, keys jingling in her hand. Her heels clicked on the tile like it was just another normal night. I didn't say a word at first. Just watched her. My hands were clenched on the edge of the table, palms sweaty, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. She saw me and stopped for half a second, just enough to register that I was up, waiting. Then she smiled, soft and easy. "Hey," she said. "Didn't think you'd still be up." I stood. My legs were stiff from sitting so long, but I pushed myself upright anyway. I didn't move from the table, though. Just stood there in the kitchen like a statue, arms loose now at my sides, stomach tight. "I saw everything," I said quietly. She blinked. The cafe. The hotel. Him. For a moment, I thought she'd pretend. That she'd act shocked. That maybe there'd be tears or a wave of guilt. But no. She didn't even flinch. She just tilted her head, shifted her weight to one foot like she was trying to decide what jacket to wear, and said, "If you know, then you know. So what? Let's just file. I'm tired of being broke." That was it. That's all she had to say for herself. No apology. No excuse. No reaching for me. No attempt to explain. She just tossed our marriage in the trash like a crumpled receipt. I stood there, stunned, while she walked over to the fridge, opened it, pulled out a bottle of water, took a sip, and leaned against the counter like this was some casual Tuesday conversation. "I've been tired for a long time," she added, not even looking at me. "We're just stuck. And I need more than this." "This?" I echoed. She turned her head toward me then, eyes sharp, mouth drawn tight. "You think editing wedding footage on weekends and waiting for the studio to call you is going to cut it forever? I didn't sign up to play house with someone who can barely afford to split rent. I have goals." "You mean Jonah has goals?" I shot back before I could stop myself. She didn't even deny it. Just shrugged. "Maybe he does. He's got a real future. He's respected. And he actually makes things happen. He's not just behind the camera, he runs the show." I felt like I'd been punched. I gripped the back of the chair in front of me just to keep steady. "So that's it?" I asked. "You're just done?" Just like that. She sighed, like she was tired of repeating herself. "I didn't cheat to hurt you. I did it because I needed to feel like I was going somewhere. And yeah, maybe I stopped loving you a while ago. I just didn't know how to say it. You could have talked to me," I said, voice cracking. "You could have said something, anything." She finally met my eyes again. "And what would that change? You'd promise to work harder? Pick up another editing gig? We've had the same fight in our heads 100 times, Mike. This isn't about Jonah. It's about the fact that I've been carrying this thing on my back, and I'm done pretending it's working. I didn't even know who this person was anymore. This wasn't the woman who used to fall asleep next to me on the couch with half a script written on her laptop. This wasn't the same Chris who used to dream out loud about buying a tiny house near a lake one day. She had turned into a stranger, and worse, a stranger who didn't care that she'd gutted our marriage with her bare hands. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything or beg her to stay. Some part of me knew it was already over. She'd made that call long before she walked into that hotel. Fine, I said, steady now, even though I felt anything but. We'll file. She gave a small, almost relieved nod. We should go together next week. It'll make the paperwork easier. Right? I said. Chris walked past me then, straight to the bedroom. A minute later, I heard the closet doors sliding open, hangers clattering. She was already packing a bag. I sat back down at the table. That flickering overhead light kept humming like it didn't care. No drama. No screaming. Just a hollow ending to something I once believed was solid. And in that moment, I realized something awful. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She'd fallen out of respect too. We didn't have much. No house, no kids. Not even a shared savings account that mattered. So when Chris and I went down to the courthouse to file for divorce, it didn't take long. The trial was held a month later. No lawyers. No fighting over furniture. Just some papers, some signatures, and a silent walk out the building like two coworkers who just wrapped up a failed group project. She kept the apartment. I couldn't afford it anyway. Between rent, utilities, and everything else she used to split with me, I didn't stand a chance on my own. I packed up my stuff in 2 days, stuffed everything into my old hatchback, and drove to my parents' place. 32 years old, freshly divorced, sleeping in my childhood bedroom under a faded ceiling fan and posters I never took down. Humiliating doesn't even begin to cover it. But I needed that reset. I really did. Those first few weeks, I barely spoke. My folks tried to ask questions, but I wasn't ready to talk about any of it. I felt like a failure. Not just in love, but in life. Chris had walked away without so much as a backward glance, and I was sitting there, alone, still trying to understand how things had gone so wrong so fast. Then one morning, something clicked. I don't know what exactly. Maybe it was the look on my dad's face when he handed me an extra set of house keys. He didn't say anything, but I saw it. That mix of pity and worry. Like he hoped I wouldn't be stuck in that house forever. I decided I wasn't going to be. I threw myself into work. Full throttle. I picked up every freelance job I could. I shot low-budget commercials for local businesses, edited training videos for real estate agents, even did camera work for high school sports events. Anything with a paycheck. Back at the studio, I kept my head down and worked longer hours. I didn't talk about Chris. Most people knew, but nobody asked. I'd show up before sunrise, leave after dark. While the reporters were in makeup or prepping scripts, I was behind the scenes adjusting lights, tweaking audio, fixing broken camera rigs no one else wanted to touch. But I didn't stop there. I started studying quietly after hours. Editing software, voice training, lighting techniques, sound mixing. Stuff that used to belong to other departments. I didn't want to just be the cameraman anymore. I wanted to be the guy who could do everything. People started noticing. It was subtle at first. Hey, Mike, can you help with this cut? Or, you're good with color correction, right? Soon I was the guy they came to when something was broken or needed fixing last minute. I liked that feeling. Being useful. Being needed. For the first time in a long time, I felt in control again. 6 months in, one of the producers pulled me aside after a morning meeting. Hey, she said, the usual guy's out sick. Think you can voice over this community feature? I blinked. Me. Yeah. Just temp. You've got a good voice. Trustworthy. We'll see how it plays. I stepped into the recording booth, hands a little shaky. The script was about a local park renovation, nothing dramatic, but I read it like it mattered. Slow, clear, measured. I imagined I was talking directly to someone sitting on their couch, flipping through channels and needing a reason to stop. They aired it that evening. I didn't expect much. A month later, they had me do it again. Then again. Within a year, I was voicing the nightly news segments, weather promos, local public service announcements. My voice was everywhere, soft and calm during community events, serious and steady for breaking stories. It was strange, hearing myself like that. At first, I didn't even recognize it. But it felt good. Like I was rebuilding something with my own hands, piece by piece. I wasn't thinking about Chris anymore, not in the same way. Not with that aching sense of loss. I'd stopped imagining her walking back through the door or wondering what she'd say if she saw me now. Instead, I was focused on what was right in front of me: work, growth, the next opportunity. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting to matter. And for the first time since she walked out of my life, I felt proud to be standing on my own. For 3 years, I have worked hard for my company. And now, this moment has come. I got the call. They wanted to promote me to general producer. I remember sitting in the conference room, stiff-collared shirt, coffee going cold in front of me. The station director smiled across the table and said, "It's time. You've earned this." I didn't say much. Just nodded, shook hands, thanked him. But on the inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, like I was standing on top of a mountain I'd been quietly climbing for years while no one was watching. I was the guy who used to run cables and carry tripods. Now I was the one who decided where the cameras pointed and what stories got the green light. General producer. The one who sets the tone, who builds the show from the ground up, who tells others what to do. And guess who was still working at the station? Chris. We hadn't spoken since the day we walked out of the courthouse. Not a word, not a text, not even a nod in the hallway. For a while, I didn't even see her around. From what I understand, they broke up with John a month after our trial. He moved on to a younger intern, someone just out of grad school. When I started seeing Chris again at the studio, I barely recognized her. She was still beautiful, always had that presence. But something had dimmed. That spark, that confidence that used to make her seem 10 feet tall when she walked into a room, it was gone. She'd bounce between filler assignments, short segments, small stories that no one really watched. Her name wasn't showing up on the high-profile pieces anymore. And then I gave her an assignment. I didn't do it directly, of course. I passed it through one of the coordinators, neutral chain of command, clean hands. But I made sure it landed in her lap. It was brutal. Complex scheduling, last-minute interviews, coordination across 3 different departments. I knew the kind of resources she had. Knew she'd either pull it off with military precision or fall flat on her face. She fell. The piece aired incomplete. Interviews were out of sync. One segment was missing entirely. And worst of all, she blamed a junior editor in front of the whole team. I pulled her file the next day. She'd been skating by for a while, late arrivals, missed internal deadlines, sloppy work. Nobody said much because, well, she was Chris, the former Golden Girl. But I wasn't playing favorites. Not anymore. Her salary got docked. Official warning issued. I made sure it went through HR, nice and proper. 2 weeks later, I gave her another assignment. Simpler this time, but just enough pressure to test her follow-through. She turned it in late. Didn't include the necessary clearance forms. That's all I needed. I called HR again, reviewed her record. I built the paper trail from the inside out. Cross-checked policy guidelines, reviewed protocols. I knew the rules. And she had violated just enough of them to give me grounds. I called for her termination. No drama. Just business. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was accountability. Years ago, I gave everything I had to lift her up. And she stepped on me to climb higher. Now I was the one holding the ladder, and she was slipping. When the paperwork was filed, I didn't say a word. I let the coordinators deliver the news. Clean chain. Professional tone. Cold, maybe, but not cruel. Still, I expected a reaction. I got one. The next morning, she was at my office door. Hair unbrushed, eyes red, holding a manila envelope like it was the only thing anchoring her to the ground. "Can I talk to you?" she said, voice quiet. I nodded, leaning back in my chair. She stepped inside, looked around like it was unfamiliar territory. In truth, she hadn't been in my office. She placed the envelope on my desk, then looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. "You don't have to do this," she said. I didn't answer right away. Just watched her. "I made mistakes," she said, tears welling up now. "I know I did. But you can't erase me like this." I leaned forward, slow and calm. "You erased yourself," I said. "I just made it official." Her eyes dropped. She stood there for another second, then walked out, not saying another word. Door closed behind her. Quiet. I looked down at the envelope she'd left. Her last assignment. Still unfinished. It didn't take long after the firing for her to come back. 3 days, to be exact. I was sitting in my office going through the rundown for the evening broadcast. It was just another day filled with decisions and deadlines, until I heard a soft knock. I looked up, and there she was. Chris stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself like the cold air had followed her in. Her eyes were red. Not the puffy, dramatic kind. This was deeper. She looked tired, like the weight of everything had finally landed on her shoulders all at once. I didn't say anything at first. Just leaned back in my chair and waited. She stepped in slowly, closed the door behind her. She didn't sit. She stood there like a statue for a few seconds. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking on the second word. I said nothing. She walked closer, her steps unsure, like she was approaching a stranger. She stopped a few feet from my desk and looked at me. Really looked. I could see it in her face. Something had broken. Maybe it had been broken for a while, and she'd just run out of tape to hold it all together. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "I know that now." Still, I didn't speak. Her hands trembled. She tried to smile, one of those weak, watery smiles that barely touches the eyes. "Not as your wife," she added quickly. "I'm not asking for that. I know that's gone. But please, don't ruin me. Don't end my career like this." She started crying then. Real tears. Her shoulders shook, and she pressed her palms against her cheeks like that would stop the flood. It didn't. "I've worked so hard," she said. "This is all I have." She stepped around the desk, gently placing her hand on my forearm, like she used to when she wanted something more time, more help, more understanding. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like it was just the two of us in the world. The same tone she used back when we were still sharing a bed and laughing about ridiculous story pitches over takeout. "Michael," she said, almost in a whisper. "Come on. You know me." I stared at her hand on my arm, then up into her face. "I do know you," I said. "That's the problem." She flinched. I stood and gently pulled her hand off me. "You think you can walk back into this room," I said, voice low but firm, "turn on the same charm, say the right words, and I'll forget what you did. But this is the punishment you earned. You thought your betrayal would disappear? It didn't. And now, neither will your failure." She went quiet. Her bottom lip trembled, and she shook her head slowly, like she was still trying to believe this was happening. "You can't mean that," she said. "You wouldn't really, eh?" "I already did." That's when her face changed. The sadness twisted into desperation. She grabbed the edge of my desk like it could keep her grounded and leaned forward. "I'll do anything," she said. "Please, Michael, don't do this. I have no backup plan. I don't have anyone else. Don't throw me away." "I didn't," I said flatly. "You did that yourself." She collapsed into the chair across from me, sobbing now. I let her sit there for a moment, let her feel the weight of it all. Then I picked up the phone and called down to security. "I have someone in my office who needs an escort out," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Immediate removal. Nonviolent. Just refusing to leave." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You're seriously doing this?" she whispered. "Yes." When security arrived, two polite but firm guys from downstairs, she started begging all over again. Voice rising, hand shaking, calling my name like we were still married. Like it still meant something. "Don't do this to me, Michael," she shouted as they took her by the arms. "You have no heart." I went to the window. I walked over, watching from the second floor as they led her out the front doors. When they let her go, she started screaming outside, looking in my window. "You're a monster. How can you do this to me?" she screamed. Then she started cursing. I picked up the glass vase of water from the table near the window, half full from yesterday's staff flowers, now wilted, and opened the latch. She was still shouting when I tilted the vase and poured it out. It splashed over her shoulders, soaking her hair, her coat, her purse. "Get out of my life, traitor," I said loud enough for enough people to hear. She froze. The entire lobby went still for a beat. Then she turned, head bowed, and silently walked away. And I closed the window. That was the last time I saw Chris. She disappeared after that day. No calls. No emails. No letters. Just gone. Like she vanished into thin air. I half expected something, some dramatic gesture, one last plea, or maybe even a nasty email trying to make me the villain in all this. But no, nothing. After that lobby scene, she just faded. Out of the building. Out of the industry. Out of my life. I didn't lose sleep over it. A year passed, and life moved on. Slowly at first. I was still working long days, still grinding, still building. But it started to pay off. I bought my own place. A modest one-bedroom condo with decent light, a little balcony, and quiet neighbors. I bought a new car too. Not flashy. Just something dependable that didn't rattle when I turned the key. The station was thriving. Ratings were up. Staff morale was high. I was respected, not just liked, but respected. People came to me for direction, advice, guidance. And Chris? No one knew where she went. She tried a few freelance gigs after the firing. That much I heard. Sent applications to a few rival networks, maybe even some online platforms. But doors closed fast. Not because she didn't have the talent, she did, but because her name carried a new kind of weight now. And not the good kind. I never said anything publicly. Didn't drag her name through the mud. But in our industry, word spreads fast. And when folks called around asking about her reliability, her professionalism, her work ethic, well, I made sure they had the facts. That was all I did. Just made sure the truth was known. She wasn't blacklisted. Not technically. But let's just say her resume ended up in the bottom of a lot of stacks. Some folks might say I went too far. Maybe they're right. Maybe the water from the window, the phone calls, the silence that followed, it was all a little much. But I don't see it that way. And she used all that to climb, and then cut me loose like deadweight. You don't cut the hands that built your throne. And if you do, you better hope those hands don't come back stronger. But mine did. And in the end, she fell by her own doing. I just stopped catching her. The new chapter of my life is quieter. Not lonely, just peaceful. I wake up early, brew good coffee, go for walks when I can. I'm not chasing anyone anymore, not trying to prove myself, not begging for someone to stay. I like the man I've become. And if you're wondering if I'd do it all again, the whole story, start to finish, in a heartbeat. Because at the end of it all, I came out stronger, sharper, smarter. I built something real from the rubble she left behind. And I'm still standing. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think by destroying his wife's career, the husband didn't punish her severely? If you like the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.